And we are back for a first look at the NFL Week 6 main slate. Once again, I'm going to keep the same format. I have not looked at anything pricing-wise. This is my first time opening up Draftkings. So, like I said, first time looking at all the salaries. And, we break down. We have 11 games. If you guys are new, my name is DK. I cover content for NFL Daily Fantasy Sports, also NBA. If you guys are playing the preseason slate, I am covering that every single day. We've had a phenomenal start to the preseason. I finished in second place in high stakes last night, won $1,000 there. Also, we've been killing it over there with the player prop stuff. So if you guys are interested in NBA, I do have a lot of content posted there. Cover content again for player prop sites like PrizePicks, Underdog, and Parlay Play. If you guys are not on Parlay Play, you can use the link down below for a $100 deposit match bonus. They do already have props up for Thursday night football and props for some of the main slate as well. But Chiefs and Broncos, you would expect that to be a pretty ugly game, but you never know. And let's take a look. If you guys are looking for more content, you can check out my Patreon, more stuff for DFS and more stuff for player prop stuff. All right, so let's take a look at the total points in these games, and then we can kind of get into the breakdown. So again, Denver and Kansas City not on the main slate. We got Baltimore, Tennessee. Yeah, I expect that to be pretty gross. About a 41 over under. Washington, Atlanta. Yuck. Another about 42 over under. Minnesota and Chicago. About a 44.5 over under. Seahawks and Bengals. About a 46 over under. 49ers, Browns. Gross. 38 over under. Saints and Texans. A 42.5 over under. The Colts and the Jags. 46 over under. Panthers and Dolphins. About 49 over under. Patriots and Raiders, that's kind of another disgusting game, 41 over under. Lions and Bucks, about a 44 over under. Cardinals, Rams, about a 48 over under. Eagles, Jets, 42. And then we had the Sunday Night Football game. So what you're looking at right here, again, is the OddsJam Sportsbook screen, where basically it gives you the average odds, it gives you the best odds. So if you guys did want to place a bet on the games, it would give you the book that offers the best odds to do so. So if you guys are interested in that, you can use the code DKDFS for 25% off your first month. It is linked down below. They also have a fancy optimizer for sites like PrizePicks, Underdog, Parlay Play. So check it out if you guys are interested. And so let's get into it. Like I said, this is my first time looking at the salaries. So we'll start at the top. So Hurts at 8.2K against the Jets obviously is firmly in play here. He had 72 yards on the ground. It's just one of those things like Hurts... He's most likely going to give you like a one rushing touchdown, right? Because anytime they get close to the goal line, like if the Eagles are on the 1 to 2 yard line, they're just going to QB sneak it with Hurts. So it's kind of wild, but the tush push or whatever you already want to call it, whenever the Eagles get near the goal line, they are just doing the QB sneak, which really does boost the floor plus ceiling of Jalen Hurts. Tua, this Dolphins offense has looked amazing so far, and obviously he has a massive ceiling going up against the Panthers. Justin Fields, I'm so tilted about this, man. I was 1 week early on him, right? Played him in tournaments here against the Chiefs. I get punished with 11 fantasy points. The next two games, 33 fantasy points each. And the reason I was so high on him going in that Chiefs game was the field was so down, right? The general public, the consensus was, oh, now Fields sucks. And I made the argument, I was like, well, hold on. If this game was at the end of the year last year, Fields would have been the most popular play of the slate, right? We knew that Fields, it does have this upside. So I was just 1 week early on him, which really did tilt me. But this is a game that you would expect to be relatively high scoring. The Bears defense is awful. Vikings defense not that much better. So I have no issue going to Fields there. I prefer him to Kirk Cousins at the summer price point. We have no Richardson. He's out for a few weeks once again. The Minshew, I think, will be a viable value. Let's see. In this mid-range, Lawrence, I think is fine. The Jags offense did bounce back there against the Bills, and this is, against the Colts, should be a relatively high-scoring game. Burrow, so we finally got the big Burrow game. 300-plus yards and 3 touchdowns for Joe Burrow. Reasonable price point there. We'll keep an eye on the status of Deshaun Watson. DTR didn't look great, but also, again, this is a really bad matchup. Even Deshaun Watson does play. Geno Smith, I think he'll be fine. So it sounds like he'll be okay. This is another game that should have some points. I'm okay with Geno as a kind of punt quarterback play. Josh Jacobs at 5.2K. Wasn't great last game, but he still provides a little bit of a rushing floor. And this is another game on the higher end as far as totals go. And then Minshew down here at 5K. I mean, he was pretty serviceable in the game against Houston and against Baltimore. He came in against Tennessee, went for 11-14, so he's looked decent. If you wanted to punt at quarterback, I think he's a fine option. And yeah, I think that's probably it for quarterbacks. Let's talk about the running back position. And Christian McCaffrey is 9.5K. We kind of saw his first subpar performance, but again, that's just because every touchdown went to George Kittle. Still, he did fall in the end zone. I think he's on a streak of like 15 touchdowns in a row or something like that. So yeah, if you have the salary for McCaffrey, obviously he provides a pretty high floor plus ceiling. HAN, well, he's going to be out, looks like a few weeks. So we won't have to tilt about that. If you guys are curious, I posted some information. I really do want everyone that watches the content to become better DFS players. And really what you should be doing each week, I did this for a long time. Go back to Fantasy Labs contest dashboard and go back and see what the pro players are doing with their exposures, right? And I retweeted some information. Almost every single pro, every 150 maxer, and the guys at the top 100 leaderboard were underweight or severely underweight to HAN last week. Almost every single DFS pro was very, very underweight. Petty Theft, one of the best DFS players in the world, had 0 of him. So you determine if a player is good or not. That is a very good indication. What are the pro players doing? They were all severely underweight, while the fish were very overweight to him. So, and you should be doing that. You should get in the habit of that, right? Go back and check to see what the pro players are doing. They were all very underweight, almost every single one. We don't have to deal with that. We don't have to deal with Achane, right? We don't have to deal with him breaking off 80-yard runs at way too high of ownership every single week, right? So we'll talk about some Miami backs here in a second. Montgomery is 7.3K, so let's see. Gibbs missed last week, and Montgomery was basically like a bell cow. So keep an eye on the status of Gibbs. If Gibbs plays, that's Montgomery would kind of just be, I would be indifferent on him, maybe a little bit overpriced. But if Gibbs is out, then I'm totally fine going to Montgomery. He was much more involved in the passing game with Gibbs out, so that does kind of boost his floor a little bit. Bijan Robinson kind of had a forgettable day, 14 carries, 46 yards, only 2 catches. He did finally get in the end zone. I'm fine at this price point, though. I still think Bijan's a very talented running back. Still like him there a good amount. Travis Etienne had a big game against the Bills, ran for 2 touchdowns, 100-plus yards in the ground as well. 7.1K. I mean, he's been like a bell cow back this year. I thought Tank Bigsby, to be honest, was gonna mix in a lot more. He really hasn't. So I have no issue paying the price point for Etienne. I think he's a pretty good play. Not a ton of Anderson Jacobs, even though he's a bell cow. That game should be pretty ugly. Alvin Kamara, 6.8K. I mean, he's just like rarely leaving the field, right? He had like 13 catches 2 games ago, 22 carries here. This is a decent matchup as well. So he looks pretty good. No real strong take of Ken Walker. We'll keep an eye on the status of Jonathan Taylor. They limited him in his first game back. If we get news that he's full go, then I would have a lot more interest in him. Kieran Williams is 6.5K. That seems about right. Mostert, so he's 6.4K. He should get a boost now with Achane out. Now the question is, Jeff Wilson. They're going to take him off the IR, looks like, or he's expected to have his practice window opened up. So I guess it's not guaranteed that he'll play. So we'll monitor the status there. If he does not play, I think Mostert's going to be one of the better running back plays in the slate for sure. Would assume he gets more work. I mean, they do still have, let's go to Miami. They do still have Salvin Ahmed too, who was originally the backup. I guess he could mix in a little bit too. But yeah, I think Mostert's going to be a pretty good running back play there. Mixon, I mean, he's kind of dusty at this point in his career, but it's just a workload thing, right? It's like 25 carries, 4 catches, 4 targets. Like, yeah, I think he's a very safe play. DeAndre Swift, I mean, this Eagles offensive line has been dominant. And of course, my one miss, I made a YouTube video talking about 5 player props I like for the main slate. My one miss was DeAndre Swift under reception. So apparently he just turned into Christian McCaffrey. But he's had a pretty high ceiling. Breece Hall did see a snap increase. You saw 22 carries from him. Even though this is not the best matchup, I still think that makes him a viable option because of the workload. Finally, the Jets are doing the right thing and playing Breece Hall a ton and not playing dusty Dalvin Cook a lot. All right, what else down here? Madison is 5.6K. Didn't see the best workload last week. Again, Cam Akers is mixing in, but that was a negative game script right there, playing from behind most of the game there. Chicago, we got to talk about this running back situation here for Chicago. So let's go there. Basically, every single running back got injured. They had to use a fullback at the end of the game. So we could definitely have some value here, but it's too early to tell exactly what I want to do because we just don't know what's going to happen. So we can definitely have some value with the Bears. Oh, and also James Conner is injured. So let's go to, he's going to be out a couple weeks from what I saw. Let's go to Arizona. And yeah, so he's going to be out. We'll keep an eye on the status of Keontae Ingram. He was inactive last game. We're definitely going to have value here, whether it be DeMercado, whether it be Keontae Ingram. They're both sub 5K. So whoever is the starting running back for Arizona, I definitely going to have some interest. Now, I don't think they're going to get like James Conner type workload, but at the price point, I think it would make them pretty solid options. Let's talk about wide receiver. Let's just go team by team. Washington in a matchup here against Atlanta. Again, this game should be pretty ugly. Not super interested in the wide receivers. Kind of the same thing with Atlanta. I mean, you could always look to Drake London, but the team is just very run first. Now, for Minnesota, we got to talk about this, right? Justin Jefferson is going to be placed on the IR, so Addison, Osborne should be operating as the top receivers, and then Brandon Powell is now going to be the wide receiver 3. He's the flat min price. There's a lot to like here, in my opinion, for Minnesota with these wide receivers. Addison 5.7, Osborne 4.4, and Brandon Powell now at 3K. I like all three, to be honest. No Justin Jefferson. That's a ton of targets to go around for those other receivers. So the Minnesota receivers, I think, look really good. For the Bears, DJ Moore obviously did an absolutely insane game. That also put me on full tilt mode, man. Fields kept missing Darnell Mooney, kept overthrowing him, but kept throwing perfect passes to Moore. Oh, man, that tilts me. The two Bears receivers are in play for tournaments. Mooney obviously put up a donut, but still a guy that, was running some deep routes. If Fields could have put it on him, then you could have saw a pretty big game from Mooney. So I'm okay with both those guys for GPPs. For the Seahawks, Metcalf is 6'8", Lockett is 5'7". So normally when these guys are about the same price, I think it's a coin flip. But since Lockett is a lot cheaper, I actually do prefer him point per dollar to Metcalf. But I always get the Seahawks receivers wrong. Like if I play one, it's always the other. Like I played Lockett last week, it was Metcalf that scored the touchdown. It's just every time with those Seattle receivers. Now for Cincinnati, T. Higgins missed last game. Jamar Chase is an absolutely insane game. 15 catches, 19 targets. It's just one of those things where like he's playing a lot more in the slot. Burrow, since he's a little bit banged up, is just they're feeding Chase with more targets, more short, quick passes. Also still has the big play upside as well. So you can't go wrong with Chase. Boyd at 4.6. Obviously looks a little bit better if T. Higgins can't play. And then it was Trent Irwin that operated as the wide receiver 3. 8 catches on 10 targets. There's definitely going to be some value here for the Bengals if T. Higgins is not able to play. For the 49ers, let's see. No real strong takes on Ayuk and Samuel in the low 6K range. We know both those guys have a ceiling. For the Browns, I just don't think I can do it. We'll see about the stats of Watson, but this is projected to be a pretty ugly game. For the Saints, Michael Thomas sub 5K, that looks pretty good to me. We haven't really seen a big game from Michael Thomas, but he's getting consistent targets, and at this price point, I think that does make him look pretty good. I mean, Olave is the wide receiver 1, but Michael Thomas, I think that's a pretty nice price point on him. For Houston, my boy Tank Dell got a concussion early on. That was tilting. I think he'll miss this game. Nico Collins is 5'6". That feels about right. John Mechie should be operating as the slot receiver now that Tank Dell is out. So I think he's kind of an interesting tournament play. And Robert Woods, sub 4K. Yeah. Now for the Colts, I will say this. With Anthony Richardson out, this boosts the appeal, in my opinion, of these Colts wide receivers. So this is a game I think could definitely shoot out. I like these Colts receivers a lot. I think Michael Pittman at 6'3" looks really good. Like I said, with Minshew playing quarterback, I think that really boosts his appeal. Downs and Pierce as well, both relatively cheap. 4.1K for Downs, 3.3K for Pierce. I think I prefer Downs to Pierce, but I do like these Colts receivers a good amount here. I think this game has sneaky shootout potential. For the Jags, Ridley bounced back. We saw over 100-yard game from him. He still is their wide receiver 1 and the guy that I think has the highest ceiling. I like him a good amount at that price point. Zay Jones once again got banged up. We'll keep an eye on his status. Christian Kirk's been getting a healthy amount of targets. I think he's very safe. I think Ridley has the higher ceiling, but I think Kirk has the higher floor. And if Zay Jones can't play, Agnew should be operating as wide receiver 3. In that one game that Zay Jones missed, he had 4 catches on 5 targets. So he could be another potential punt play there at the wide receiver position. For Carolina, I mean, I've been playing Adam Thielen every week. When will the faders learn is what I want to know, right? He's just their clear wide receiver 1. The Panthers are awful, so they're always playing from behind. they're almost definitely going to be playing from behind against Miami. We know Miami's going to put up a lot of points, so yeah, I mean, I think Thielen looks great. Even at 5.9K, I know he's sitting up there in age, but he's still very clearly the wide receiver one. And this is pretty tilting. I was extremely high on Mingo. I took alt receiving yards. I took his 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus, and of course he finished with 48. I needed 2 more yards for him to make a good amount of money there. But Mingo rarely left the field, and he's 3.5K. I know Thielen's their wide receiver one, but I like Mingo at this price point too. And then Chark was the other starting receiver. He fell in the end zone, but I think I would prefer Mingo to Chark. For Miami, we know the ceiling on both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Both those guys are good options if you can afford them. For the Patriots, I kind of have a tough time getting to any of these receivers. I guess if I had to play one, probably would be a 3.5K Devontae Parker. For the Raiders, and this is projected to be a pretty ugly game. Adams is 8-1. He had a quiet game last game, but we know this guy can break the slate anytime he touches the field. And then Jacoby Myers, I think, is easier to get to, 5.8K. Again, the Raiders' very, very condensed target share. For the Lions, we'll monitor the status of Amon-Ra St. Brown. With him out, it was Reynolds and Raymond kind of operating as the top receivers. Also, Jamison Williams, he kind of got eased in. He did have 2 catches on 3 targets. So we'll keep an eye on his status and what the limit's going to be for Jamison Williams. But I think we can definitely get some value here for the Lions with Reynolds and Raymond once again if Amon-Ra St. Brown is out. If Amon-Ra St. Brown is in, then I don't really have any super strong takes on those Lions value receivers. For the Bucks, Mike Evans is 7.1K. So let's see, tweaked his hamstring. We'll keep an eye on the status. Hamstrings usually do linger a little bit. So I think if I had to guess, I would say he doesn't play, but we'll see. If he doesn't, Godwin probably is going to get more looks. I mean, he had 11 targets last game. And then Palmer and Tompkins would probably benefit both if there's no Mike Evans. Let's see, for Arizona, so Hollywood Brown is 5.3K. I mean, he just continues to get a ton of targets, reasonable price point. Arizona is not great, so they're usually playing from behind. I like the price point there. Michael Wilson, after a big week last week, I think, he had 1 catch. Rondale Moore is 3.5K. No real strong takes there. And then for the Rams, so Cooper Kupp, first game back, I thought, maybe there's a chance to limit him. Nope. He just basically played 100% of the snaps, 8 catches, 12 targets. I mean, the price point's now up on Kupp, but he just did not leave the field. Puka Nacua, 8K. I mean, I would rather get to Kupp at a similar price point than Puka, but Puka still got a healthy amount of targets. My boy Tutu, I think pretty clearly now the wide receiver 3, but the thing was, if you take a look at the snap counts, it was just these 3 that played. I think Van Jefferson played 1 snap. So I think Tutu is still viable. I mean, he still did have 5 targets, and he's way, way cheaper. And again, the good thing about the Rams is they just don't rotate the receivers. They play the top 3 guys, and they play them the entire game. Now with Philly, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, this is the same thing basically with the Seahawks. If I play one of these guys, it's the other one that smashes. So both have a pretty high ceiling. I'm not really interested in the slot receiver there for the Eagles. And finally, the Jets, Garrett Wilson, 6K. This is a game you would think they should be playing from behind. He should get a fair amount of targets. So yeah, like Garrett Wilson, Lazard, Cobb. And if I had to play one, it would be Lazard, who's just playing a lot more. All right, let's finish up with the tight end position, and then we can get out of here. So Hawkinson, 6'6". I think he's going to be a pretty popular play. No Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to be the top guy in the receiving game. So even though, you might think this is a relatively high price point on him, I think he looks like a really, really good play. We saw Laporta kind of get there with the touchdowns, only 3 catches, but 2 of them were TDs. If there's no Amon-Ra St. Brown, again, you would think he gets more looks. George Kittle had a massive week last week. I would say a bit of an outlier. 3 catches, only 3 touchdowns. Again, this game should be pretty ugly. Goddard had a huge game, kind of out of nowhere. 8 catches, 100-plus yards. It kind of tilted because I've been playing Goddard a lot recently. Did not play him last week, and he finally just absolutely breaks the slate. Matt, he's a guy that can look to the red zone. Again, Fields is gaining confidence. That Bears offense is looking better. Ingram, solid play. Again, we know the Jags definitely are a team that can put up a lot of points. Higbee, I mean, obviously didn't get as many targets with Kupp back, but still a guy that's rarely leaving the field. Reasonable price point there. Schultz and Ertz, again, 2 guys on not great teams that should be playing from behind. Kyle Pitts, we saw a pretty big game from him. 7 catches, 11 targets. I took his over 4.5 targets. Clearly hit. Still at a cheap price point. Again, Atlanta is not going to throw the ball a ton, but when they do, it's usually going to Drake London. It's usually going to Kyle Pitts. We also saw kind of a big game from Logan Thomas. That was pretty random. I don't really think that we can expect that again, but still, he played a lot of snaps. Conklin, again, Jets offense is not great, but he's rarely leaving the field. So you definitely have some cheap options down here. Durham Smythe is 2.9K. Did not have a catch last week, but still a guy that is playing a fair amount. So yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for the video. As always, guys, if you do enjoy, just make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'll try to get up a Thursday night video later tonight. Like I said, if you're playing NBA preseason, go check out my videos breaking down. We have a 7-game slate tonight. So excited for week 6 main slate. Good luck, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.